are consistent, and we are being reminded that standing up for the right causes is as important as maintaining racial and racial harmony and security, I suppose.
Yeah, I think you made a good point, right? Which is that what is happening in the UK right now, yes, I mean there's a lot of other reasons why the UK is a bit screwed up at the moment, but this impact of like refugees in the UK and this fear of this right wing, I guess, kind of this right wing focus on the role of refugees in why UK is not doing well, makes it very easy for social unrest to happen and go haywire quite quickly. Whereas here in Singapore, we are, I guess, in some ways as diverse as the UK, maybe in some ways more, some ways less, but 15% of our population are still Malay Muslims, and many of them have close ties to our neighboring countries. And there is, regardless of what you say, I mean, what's happening in Palestine is horrific scenes, and seeing that being played out to civilians would move anyone's heart. But on the other side, you have right wing people in Singapore as well who are very supportive of the Israeli state in their actions, and not having the right rail guards in place, like POFMA, which is the Protection of Online Falsehood Act, to kind of nip these falsehoods in the bud quickly, could result in Singapore, having similar issues that we're seeing in the UK right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that, as I think about what you're talking about, is the importance of our social fabric.
Yeah.
Right? It's all interconnected, because if you think of what's happening in Israel, as soon as they got the attack, they mobilized their reservist force. Now, in Singapore, mandatory to serve, national service. And we have a reservist force. Our first ones were trained by Israel. And a lot of our reservist force, if we are ever under kind of state of attack, would involve soldiers, unlike Israel, who are basically all Israeli, of different faith. And it's important to acknowledge, respect each other's faith, because we literally are as strong as our weakest link, right, in this country. And at the same time, our military defense, our total defense, and the way we are being portrayed and viewed by other countries also takes a hit, I guess. So in that sense, public policy and the way we view security in Singapore, it's all kind of embedded within the social fabric, I think.
Yeah, because we were going to talk about this from two angles, right? The security angle and the social angle. Yeah. But maybe they're actually the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Social defense is one of the defenses here in Singapore.
Yeah, exactly. And at the same time, we look at it internally, but externally, the situation in Israel and Palestine, people might think that the crisis that is happening in Europe and the US right now with the influx of immigration, which has led to a lot of the widespread concerns on domestic security, is actually not really true. If you look at a lot of the statistics released by the UN agencies, the number of refugees who are entering Europe is not actually directly by the war or from the war that is happening between Israel and Palestine. A lot of the people don't want to go to the West because they see the West as supporting Israel.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of false informations and false pejoratives that are being played out. And so having this kind of safeguards in place makes sure that in Singapore, at least the information that we're consuming is almost somewhat accurate. Importantly as well, the Israel-Palestinian conflict, unlike the numerous Israel-Palestinian conflicts, is being really played out in different kinds of social media platforms. Right? I think in Singapore, they have said that there's been an increase in the overall viewership of some of these videos, either in TikTok or in different platforms. When this happens, the propensity for people to be radicalized by seeing a lot of these images is also higher. And I think most of the ministry's efforts, and even some of our ministers have said, it is getting harder and harder to see how many of these people are actually being radicalized as before. So I think we have to take these things very seriously. We have to check and make sure that the kind of information that Singaporeans are getting are also accurate. But it's hard without any independent third-party kind of verification from the source.
Look, Ben, this has been a pretty heavy topic. And I think that if we knew how to solve it, definitely wouldn't be doing a podcast about it. And I think, what is special about for me, what's been special about starting this up again with this topic is that, it is an ongoing conflict that actually we've been, I guess, not a part of, but almost became a part of. And I think, having traveled so much to these regions and then coming back to Singapore after our travels, I really feel the significance of how the social fabric that you talk about has played a part, right? When I come back to Singapore, and when we talk about Singapore when we go overseas, people always ask us, even when we were out of the country last week, they're like, oh, you Vanan, you don't look like a typical Singaporean would look, or Daniel, you don't look like a typical Singaporean, which from the outside is true, but every time we come back to Singapore, everyone knows, like, it doesn't really matter what you look like. You may have an Indian identity or a Chinese identity, but I really kind of cherish this more now than I did about a year and a half ago, that we can be Singapore first. And actually, it's a big privilege when we tell people about it overseas.
Yeah. Look, for me, it's close to my heart. All the people that I met in Palestine, I hope they're keeping safe.
Yeah.
I try to check in with them, but I hope the situation reaches a natural end. When I lived in the UK, there's a place in the UK called Muswell Hill where there's a huge Jewish population and Palestinian population, and they live happily surrounded by numerous fantastic Jewish bakeries.
Yeah.
And in the US, I've heard from my friends that Palestinians and Israelis are friends. And I hope that Singapore can continue to be a state where we don't really see or prioritize these differences, but allow them to be more harmonized. So I hope that happens. I hope Singapore, remains in that vein and that form. And let's just hope there's an end to the conflict. I'm really glad we started this podcast back up again. I know it's a heavy topic that we start with, but we don't choose. We just talk about what's important, and we'll continue to do so in the next upcoming episodes.
So look, I mean, a lot of stuff coming up Singapore-wise in the next couple of months. GE is coming at some point. Definitely there'll be a big run up to that. In the next few weeks, National Day. We have DPM Wong's first National Day address. What? Oh my gosh, no. We have Prime Minister.
Did you say DPM Wong, Dan? Do you think
Marcus,
someone else should be Prime Minister?
We have PM Wong's first National Day rally in a few weeks. I'll be there, and I'll come back on the pod to tell you what it was all about. I'll be there in person. Thank you very much.
You can tell he's excited because he's shouting on the mic.
Yeah. Lots of... wow, you put me in a difficult position. Thank you very much. See you soon, guys.
Well, thank you very much for listening to the podcast. If you liked it or enjoyed it, do share around with your friends, and hope we can continue to take up a small space in your comfortable living room. Yeah. We are Local Politics.
Bye.